Hi, my name is Coach Brian. You're on quadzillacoaching.com. Today we're going to talk about how to reinstall a tire that has been flatted and replaced with a new tube. So first thing you want to do, make sure you know where your valve stem will go in your wheel. I always leave this to the top of the wheel. I've got my tube here that I know is new. I'm going to go ahead and install that tube, the valve stem, right in there. I'm just going to leave it there for a second. I've made sure, but I'm going to do it again. I'm going to make sure that I've taken out all of the debris, glass, stickers, whatever could be in my tire that could be causing a future flat. You want to make sure you get that out, otherwise you'll be stopping and replacing your tube again. A good rule of thumb, although not required, is make sure the label of the tire is where the valve core is, the valve stem. And one of the reasons for that is just simply to make sure that it's easy to spot where the valve stem is when you are looking for tires. It's just something that bike riders do. Okay, now you've got your valve stem installed here, but notice the gap that I have. This is important to know. I've got a little gap here between the tube and the rim. And the reason for that is I want to make sure that I got enough room to put my tire on. Okay, and then I use the tire to push down on that valve stem. Now I'm with my hands only. I'm going to put on one side of the tire. And I'm moving from the top of the tire to the bottom. This can take some effort and some practice, so make sure you practice this a whole bunch before you go on your next excursion. Okay, now that I have one side of the tire on, I've got a little bit of air inflated in here, and the reason for that is it helps me put the tube inside the tire and get it nice and snug and set in there properly. Okay, your hands are going to get dirty during this process, but it's very important. So I've got the tube set in the tire. The next step is I want to make sure I get the tube sitting inside the rim where it's supposed to be. This takes a little bit of work, but it's worth the practice, and I simply massage the tube into the rim. Now remember, I've got a little bit of air in this tube, and as I get a little closer to the top, I'm going to need to probably let some of this out, and you'll have to practice to figure out exactly where it is that you need to be in terms of your tube pressure when you reinstall your tires. And this takes a little bit of practice. I wanted to show you guys how it's done. Okay, so I basically got the tube in there nice and snug. The next thing, and this is really important, when you put on the second side of the tire, it's really important to make sure that you don't pinch the tube between the bead of the tire, which is right here, and the rim of the wheel. Because if you do, if you pinch it, when you reinflate this tire, it's going to cause another flat. Okay, now that I've got my tube embedded, I'll let some of my air out. Okay, and I'm going to, with my hands, I'm going to install the rest of this tire. Starting from here again, now this time you got to push this valve stem up a little bit. That's going to give you an opportunity to seat the bead of the tire right there. You want to make sure it's nice and tucked in. With your thumbs, you're going to start putting this tire on, working from the top to the bottom. Okay, and this is where it gets hard. And remember, when we took the tire off, we had to let some of the pressure out by sliding the tire towards the middle from top to bottom. We have to do the same thing when we're reinstalling the tire. Now, the last part, the last couple inches, is the very, very hardest part. I usually leverage this tire against my legs. I crank down with my palms, and I start pushing this way and pushing with my thumb. So here we go. Pushing, it's a two-part motion. Push, 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 and you can hear it snap in. Now this tire is installed, however, it's not ready to ride. A couple important things. One very important thing to remember. You want to air up a little bit. Okay, see, when you're on the road, a lot of times people use CO2 cartridges. I like CO2 cartridges too. But before I inflate with a CO2 cartridge, I want to make sure that I've got enough air in this tire to make sure that I'm not pinching the tube. So I use a frame pump. Now this is a floor pump. I use a frame pump when I'm on my rides, and the reason for that is so I can just put modulate a little bit of air into this tire before inflating with the CO2. Okay, so now that I've got a little bit of air in my tire, the next thing I'm going to do is, starting from here, I'm simply going to push this tire and make sure I've got it seated appropriately in the bead. I'm looking to make sure that there are no pieces of tube in between the tire and the metal. Okay, and it requires a little bit of discipline, especially when you're in a hurry, you're on the road, but it's worth the work. Okay, I've gone around once. I'm going to flip the wheel. I'm going to do it again. I'm going all the way around here, getting this tire set in real nice. Okay, I'm confident now that this bead is set in properly. There are no risk of pinching the tube. My next step is to inflate this tire. If I'm in the field, I'm going to use a CO2 cartridge. I'm in my shop right now. I'm going to go ahead and just pump it up with my floor pump. Coming up videos, I'm going to show you more about field work and how to repair flats in the field. But for now, you now know how to take a wheel off. You know how to take a tire off, you know how to reinstall a tire, and you know how to put a wheel back on a bike. I'm Coach Brian. Thanks for visiting quadzilla coaching.com. We'll see you on the road.